Amazing. Victoria, Lindsay, Tina, Janice, Reverend Donna. It's amazing, isn't it? They're all amazing. Yeah. Oh, it feels so good to be here with you all. I missed you all last week. Let me get everything set up. Okay. So our theme, well, welcome to 2019. I hope it's been good for you so far. Our theme for this year, I've been doing a lot of inner feeling and calling, and what His Spirit has been speaking to me is saying that our intention or our theme needs to be spirituality in action. Spirituality in action, because it's always an inclination for us on our spiritual journey to go inward, to meditate, to listen to our intuition, to deeply dive into the recesses of our thinking and our feeling nature. But what I invite us to do is to not only do that, but to begin to live our essence, to live our spirituality out loud without apology for all the world to see. And maybe that shows up in inviting someone to come to church with you. Maybe it shows up in showing a kindness to someone who hasn't felt that in a while. Maybe it shows up in giving a hug or in some brilliant, amazing way that we couldn't even think of right now. So I want to invite you to set this intention for yourself as well, for our community. Would you like to do that? Yeah. Okay. And so I'm going to just say this, and then I'll ask you if you'd like to share it. My intention for 2019 is to allow my inward journey to start showing up on the outside. You want to say that with me? In 2019, I'm going to allow my inward journey to start showing up on the outside. Doesn't that feel good? That's what we want to do, right? Yes. I love it. Okay, so before we go any further, I want to invite us to do a spiritual practice together. Is that okay? Do you mind doing a little centering with me? Or a little visualizing? Okay. So if you're up for it, I invite you to just close your eyes and relax. Get comfortable and just breathe. Breathe in through your nose and out through your nose. Focus on your breath for a moment. Just allow it to center us here. The power of being in intention and in consciousness with this many people around us doing the same thing is explosively powerful. So I invite us to just kind of reflect on this last year, on 2018, on the feelings of good and not so good, on the experiences of struggle and triumph. What are we still holding on to? What is the energy that we're carrying with us into this brand new year? I invite us to imagine that we're standing in the middle of a beautiful meadow with trees surrounding us. It's the perfect temperature. The sun is shining. And in just an instant, a beautiful rainstorm comes and it begins to drench us. I invite us inwardly to imagine ourselves raising our hands up, raising our face up to this water of life, and allow it to just rinse off the residue, the energetic residue that we don't need to bring forward with us. Allow our spirits, our minds, our bodies to be cleansed from any resentment, any struggle or frustration. If there are those from our past year who need to be forgiven, let us do it now. If there is a part of us that feels that it needs to be forgiven, know that the universe never holds grudges. And you are forgiven as soon as you ask for it. As soon as you're able to forgive yourself. Allowing the sun to come out and fill our bodies and minds and hearts and spirits with light. The light of becoming, the light of possibility. Feeling our slate wiped clean, our consciousness clear, the residue of the past wiped cleanly off of us. I invite us to now enter into this present moment as ourselves, as we wanted to be, as we should be, as we are. And open your eyes when you're ready. Take a deep breath. Doesn't that feel good? To just let it go. The new year is such a great opportunity for this, but we could do it any time of the week. Any moment we can have a new thought. But it feels good knowing that the residue of that which we no longer want has mentally and visually been fallen away from us. And we can start again. So it's kind of a tradition in Centers for Spiritual Living around the world to get back to the basics in the first month of January. And we normally use each Sunday to talk about the first 4 chapters of the Science of Mind textbook. And that is, the Science of Mind textbook is the textbook. It's a book that has within it, especially within the first 4 chapters, the solid foundation of our spiritual philosophy that we study here. And so this morning, I will be looking at and sharing with ideas and concepts that come from the thing itself, which is the first chapter. And so if you want to go home later and read it, it's amazing and deep and powerful, and you might need to read it 10 times to understand it, because I know I have. But the 3 ideas that I want to share with you are that the universe never plays favorites. And not only does it not play favorites, it cannot play favorites. And the second idea is that all thought is creative. All thought is creative. And the third idea that I want to share with you from this chapter is that learning to trust will make us happy. Learning to trust will make us happy. And I just love this opportunity for us to start in the beginning, remembering, or maybe for the first time ever hearing, this foundation that we have, this germinated seed that has been planting and the roots that have grown really, really deep for us for many years. Or maybe they're just starting to grow. But having that firm foundation of our spiritual philosophy, of the truth of who we are, it works to enable us to grow tall, to grow strong and sturdy and outward reach. And that's what we're about, being steady in our foundation, knowing who we are, so that we might lift the world up and remind it of who it is. So let's start with, these all kind of play on each other. So let's start with the universe never plays favorites. This was a kind of hard one for me to understand or conceive for a while, because it kind of felt like, well, they seem to have it a lot better than I do. Or, like maybe some people are just luckier than others. Or why do they get to seem so happy and cheerful and I'm over here pouting and like the world's done me wrong, And so, it happens, maybe only to me, but it happens. And I would think, gosh, is the universe just against me? Like, is life just against me? Until I realized or learned this idea that if God, or whatever you want to call it, Mother, Father, God, Universal Spirit, Holy Spirit, I don't know, Source, whatever you want to call this thing itself, that it is everywhere present, and it is a universal principle, which means that it is in each of us equally. And Ernest Holmes, he has this great example of this. He says, we do this thing, we mix two colors together, and it gets another certain color. And anybody who mixes these two colors together are going to get this other color. So we don't really think about it, but this is what is called a universal principle, right? So it doesn't matter if you're Mother Teresa or you got a rap sheet 10 miles long. If you mix these two colors together, you are going to get this color, right? It doesn't matter who you are. The universe does not play favorites. It does not favor some over others. It is a consistent spiritual universe that we live in that says, here are the laws of spirituality, here are the principles, and every person equally has the ability to utilize these ideas, these principles, to grow, transform, become enlightened, and live a life that they choose. But the idea is that we have to actually utilize them, right? So maybe those people who we see having a better life than we do, or they're happier than we are, maybe they just learned how to wield this power that's within all of us. And so that brings me to the second idea, which is that all thought is creative. All thought is creative. But don't worry, only all thought, it's your tendency of thought that is creative. It's the majority of your thought that is creative. So this is really lucky for us, so that every single thought we ever have isn't just like coming up and manifesting, right? That would be, oh, good Lord, my life would be, all of our lives would be crazy if every thought I had came up. I can't even imagine. But so what it is it's the tendency. So a tendency is, just think about this for a moment. Think about your last week or your last month of your life. And just kind of do an averaging out of your thoughts. Have I been thinking more on the positive side, or have I been thinking more on the negative side? Does my tendency of thought seem to be more that life is good and for us, or more that it's a struggle and it's really hard? Neither of these are better or worse than another, and I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand and tell me where you are, but be honest with yourself, right? Be honest with yourself. Because this tendency of thought, the majority of thought, here's positive, here's negative, whichever one's outweighing the other, that's your majority thought, and that's the tendency that your world is going to show up as. And so there's this equation that I want to give you. Consistent thought plus affirmative power equals creation. Because, and I'll just be honest with you, okay, about affirmations. You can say affirmations all you want, all day and night long. But if you do not put a powerful feeling behind them, thought plus feeling creates. So feeling without thought, without it being clarified, does not much. And having thoughts without having a deep, powerful feeling behind them doesn't do much either. But putting them together creates incredible transformation. And I'll share a personal example with you. For a long time, I used to replay this tape that said that I wasn't good enough, that I was nowhere near able to, live up to any one of you guys. You guys are all so much better than me. Because I had this tape replaying that I did everything in my life upside down and backwards. Upside down, backwards, flipping around. I dropped out of high school when I was in 9th grade. I became a mom at 18. I went to college after I had my daughter, and then I had my son at 21. And then I went back to college to become a professional in the healthcare field for 10 years while I was still trying to figure out what my purpose was. And then I went to school for 8 more years to become a minister and finding my purpose, and then I got married. In the grand scheme of things, it's all good, right? Yeah. Everything worked out. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to do, doing what my heart and passion calls me to do. But it took believing and using these principles to encourage me enough to be able to come up here and say and share with you all of my upside down and backwardness, right? It took me listening to someone who told me, Nicole, it's not who you were, it's not who you are that's holding you back. It's that stinking thinking, It's that you're believing and buying into this idea. And for once, even though I've heard it a million times, I believed her. And I said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be very diligent and only allow certain thoughts in, and I'm going to be diligent and only hold within me the power that I want, the joy and love and kindness and compassion that I want to be, that I didn't think I had. And over time, I like to say, voila, like it's magical. No. Over time and practice and having to be reminded a million other times and ways, I'm whole. And that's utilizing this power. That's remembering that the universe doesn't play favorites. That just because you seem to have your stuff together far more than I do, doesn't mean that I can't get my stuff together. It means I have to do what it takes. I have to practice. And so that leads me to the third little idea, that learning to trust will make us happy. Learning to trust that we live in a spiritual universe, that consciousness is the ground of all being, that consciousness is the ground of physicality, of spirituality, of mental and emotional realms, that consciousness is beyond. It is what creates the quanta and the atom and the cell and the body and the rock. There is consciousness in a rock, in dirt, in people, in experiences. Consciousness creates all. And when we buy into that, when we can have just the slightest bit of faith in that, then we begin to utilize our thoughts and our power. We are powerful. Powerful. If you believe me, say, I am powerful. I am powerful. Dang, you believe me. Okay, good. We're getting somewhere here. Yes, we are powerful. We are powerful. I'm an example of it. You're an example of it. We are all equal measures of divine intelligence with the power in us to transform anything, beginning with ourselves and hopefully moving outward into the world. I want to share with you something that Dr. Holmes said about limitation and evil and what that's all about. He says, we all wish to feel that the power behind everything is good, as well as creative, an eternal and changeless intelligence in which we live and move and have our being. The entire problem, now listen to this, the entire problem of limitation, evil, suffering, and uncertainty is not God ordained, but is the result of ignorance. It has been written with that truth shall set us free, provided we know the truth. Provided we know the truth. We find ourselves torn between confusion, conflict, affirmation, denial. But the truth is, it's like what Martin Luther King Jr. said in his I Have a Dream speech, out of the mountain of despair comes a stone of hope. Out of the mountain of despair comes a stone of hope, that we may have been living in ignorance, which is just the unknowing of something. We may have been living in the not knowingness, which is what creates the suffering and the struggle and the apparent evil. But the moment we begin to trust, the moment we begin to have faith, to trust, is the moment that that hope springs forward and that we become the beautiful, enlightened beings that we are. So I want to invite us to just move into prayer for a moment. Take a deep breath with me, if you will. The collective energy in this room is so palpable. I can feel the warmth on my face, knowing that there is only one life, one breath, one true spirit in here. It is consciousness. It is that which we dwell in together. We are one. We are so interconnected, every one of us here. You are my brothers and my sisters, and we are each other's keepers. And in this truth, I know that we are the arms, the breath, the eyes, the ears of the beloved, that beloved one power, that spiritual universe in which we live. And I affirm for each of us now that we step in to that power, that we step into the knowledge, the understanding, and the sliver of truth, of hope, of faith, that we can make a change, that we can make a difference, that we can live our vision of a world that works for everyone in our lives, in our homes, and in our communities now. We are the life divine. We are the greatness and the mightiness of God in action. And for this, my heart cries out with tears of joy, of gratitude, of peace. There is nothing but God. There is nothing but beauty and peace and love, and anything other than that is just the ignorance of it, is just the closed eyes. But we can open those eyes now. And so I speak my word of authority, of spiritual authority, into the mind of the divine, into the universal intelligence that says yes. Yes. And so I give my words away, and so it is. Thank you, everyone.